The sun hangs low over the quiet streets of Willow Creek, a small town where the air smells of freshly cut grass and the faint tang of diesel from the occasional passing truck. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, or at least thinks they do. On the surface, it's idyllic. White picket fences line the sidewalks, and the hum of lawnmowers fills the air on Saturday mornings. But beneath the veneer of small-town charm, there's a tension that no one talks about. Not out loud, anyway. Malik Carter sits on the porch of his family's modest home, a worn-out basketball resting between his feet. At 17, he's the kind of kid who blends into the background, quiet, observant, and always with a book in hand. His twin brother, Jamal, is the opposite. Jamal's laughter echoes down the block as he dribbles the ball down the driveway, his movements fluid and confident. The two are inseparable, a bond forged in the fire of shared secrets and unspoken understanding. But today, something feels off. Malik's eyes drift to the end of the street, where a sleek black SUV is parked. It's been there for hours, the tinted windows hiding whoever's inside. He doesn't know why it bothers him, but it does. Maybe it's the way the driver revs the engine every so often, like a predator toying with its prey. Or maybe it's the way Mrs. Henderson from across the street peers out her window, her face pinched with disapproval, before quickly drawing the curtains. Malik shakes the thought away. He's being paranoid. Probably. "Yo, Malik." Jamal calls, snapping him out of his thoughts. "You gonna sit there all day or what? Come shoot some hoops." Malik forces a smile and grabs the ball, but his mind is still elsewhere. He can't shake the feeling that something's coming. Something bad. He glances back at the SUV, but it's gone now, leaving only an oily stain on the asphalt. He tells himself it's nothing. Just another car. Just another day. Inside the house, their mom hums softly as she stirs a pot of gumbo on the stove. The smell of spices fills the air, warm and comforting. She's been working double shifts at the diner lately, her hands raw from scrubbing dishes, but she never complains. Malik watches her for a moment, his chest tightening. She deserves better than this. They all do. "Boys, dinner's almost ready," she calls, her voice carrying the faintest hint of exhaustion. "Be there in a minute, Ma." Jamal shouts back, already halfway up the driveway. Malik lingers on the porch, his gaze drifting to the "For Sale" sign planted in the yard next door. The house has been empty for months, ever since the Johnsons moved out. Rumor has it they left in the middle of the night, their car packed to the brim. No one knows why, but Malik has his suspicions. He's heard the whispers at school, the way some of the teachers look at him and Jamal, like they don't belong, like they're a problem waiting to happen. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the street, Malik feels a chill run down his spine. He doesn't know it yet, but the SUV isn't gone for good. And the "For Sale" sign next door? It won't be empty for long. Something's coming. Something big. And when it does, Malik and Jamal will be right in the middle of it. For now, though, there's dinner. There's laughter. There's the sound of Jamal's sneakers squeaking on the pavement as he tries to dunk on their makeshift hoop. Life is normal. Peaceful. But Malik knows better than to trust peace. In Willow Creek, peace is just the calm before the storm. The next morning, Malik wakes to the sound of hammering. It's sharp, insistent, and way too early for his liking. He groans, pulling the pillow over his head, but the noise doesn't stop. It's coming from next door. He sits up, his heart pounding for no reason he can explain, and shuffles to the window. The sight outside makes his stomach drop. The "For Sale" sign is gone. In its place, a moving truck is parked crookedly in the driveway, its back doors wide open. Two burly men are unloading furniture, their faces red and sweaty under the morning sun. But it's not the movers that catch Malik's attention. It's the man standing on the porch, arms crossed, barking orders like he owns the world. And maybe Malik thinks bitterly he does. The man is tall, with a square jaw and a crisp polo shirt tucked into khaki pants. His hair is perfectly combed, not a strand out of place, and his sunglasses reflect the sunlight like twin mirrors. He looks like he stepped out of a catalog for suburban dads, but there's something about him that sets Malik on edge. Maybe it's the way he stands, his posture rigid and commanding, or the way he glances over at the Carter house with a flicker of disdain before turning away. "Who's that?" Jamal asks, appearing at Malik's side. He's still half asleep, his hair sticking up in every direction, but his eyes narrow as he takes in the scene. "New neighbor," Malik mutters. "Looks like a real charmer." Jamal snorts. "Yeah, right. But he's one of those guys who calls the cops if you step on his lawn." Malik doesn't laugh. He can't shake the feeling that this man, whoever he is trouble. He watches as the man pulls out his phone, his voice carrying across the yard. "Yeah, it's me," the man says, his tone clipped. "Just making sure everything's in order. I don't want any surprises." Malik's stomach twists. Surprises? What does that mean? He glances at Jamal, but his brother is already heading back to bed, oblivious. Malik stays at the window, his fingers tapping nervously against the sill. He doesn't know why, but he feels like he's waiting for something. Something bad. Later that day, the feeling only gets worse. Malik is walking home from the library, his backpack heavy with books, when he sees the black SUV again. It's parked at the end of the street, the engine idling. The windows are still tinted, but Malik swears he can feel someone watching him. He quickens his pace, his heart racing, and doesn't look back until he's safely inside. "You okay?" his mom asks, glancing up from the kitchen table. Her eyes are tired, but they soften when she looks at him. "Yeah," Malik says, forcing a smile. "Just thought I saw something." She nods, but he can tell she doesn't believe him. He doesn't blame her. He doesn't believe himself either. That night, Malik lies in bed, staring at the ceiling. The hammering has stopped, but the silence feels worse. It's heavy, oppressive, like the calm before a storm. He thinks about the new neighbor, the SUV, the way Mrs. Henderson had looked at him earlier that day. Like he was a stranger in his own neighborhood. Like he didn't belong. He doesn't know what's coming, but he knows it's coming. And when it does, he'll be ready. Or at least, he hopes he will. The tension in Willow Creek thickens like a storm cloud ready to burst. Malik can feel it in the air, in the way people avoid his eyes when he walks down the street, in the way the new neighbor, Mr. Grayson, seems to always be watching. It's been a week since Grayson moved in, and already the neighborhood feels different. Colder. More divided. Malik decides he can't stay silent anymore. He needs answers. He needs to know why Grayson's presence feels like a threat. So one afternoon, he gathers his courage and walks over to the house next door. The lawn is perfectly manicured, the flower beds meticulously arranged, and the porch looks like it belongs in a magazine. Malik hesitates at the foot of the steps, his heart pounding, but he forces himself to knock. The door swings open almost immediately, as if Grayson had been waiting for him. Up close, the man is even more intimidating. His smile is tight, his eyes cold, and his voice drips with false politeness. "Can I help you?" Grayson asks, his tone suggesting the opposite. Yeah," Malik stammers, suddenly regretting his decision. "I just wanted to welcome you to the neighborhood. I'm Malik. I live next door." Grayson's smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Ah yes, the Carter boy. I've heard about you." Malik's stomach churns. "Heard what? From who?" But before he can ask, Grayson continues. "Well, Malik, I appreciate the gesture, but I'm a busy man. If you'll excuse me." He starts to close the door, but Malik steps forward, desperation overriding his fear. "Wait, I wanted to ask if everything's okay. I've noticed some stuff going on, like that SUV that's always parked at the end of the street. Do you know anything about that?" Grayson's expression hardens, and for a moment, Malik thinks he's gone too far. But then the man chuckles, a low, humorless sound that sends a chill down Malik's spine. "You're a curious one, aren't you?" Grayson says, his voice dangerously calm. "Let me give you some advice, Malik. Curiosity can be dangerous. Especially for someone like you." Malik's blood runs cold. Someone like you. The words hang in the air, heavy with meaning. Before he can respond, Grayson slams the door in his face, leaving Malik standing on the porch, his hands trembling. That night, Malik tells Jamal everything. His brother listens in silence, his jaw tightening with every word. When Malik finishes, Jamal slams his fist on the table, his eyes blazing with anger. "That guy's a piece of work," Jamal growls. "We can't just let him get away with this. We need to do something." "Like what?" Malik asks, his voice tinged with desperation. He's got everyone in this neighborhood wrapped around his finger. Even Mrs. Henderson acts like he's some kind of saint. Jamal leans forward, his expression fierce. "Then we find proof. Something that shows everyone who he really is. We can't let him win, Malik. We can't." Malik nods, his resolve hardening. He knows Jamal's right. They can't let Grayson intimidate them into silence. But finding proof won't be easy. Grayson is careful, calculated, and always one step ahead. Over the next few days, Malik and Jamal start digging. They watch Grayson's house from their bedroom window, noting every visitor, every strange occurrence. They talk to their neighbors, trying to piece together what little information they can. But it's slow going, and the more they uncover, the more dangerous things become. One evening, as Malik is walking home from the store, he sees Grayson talking to a police officer. They're standing in the middle of the street, their voices low but urgent. Malik ducks behind a tree, his heart racing, and strains to hear what they're saying. "Just keep an eye on them," Grayson is saying, his voice cold and commanding. "They're trouble, trust me. It's only a matter of time before they do something stupid." The officer nods, his expression grim. "Don't worry, Mr. Grayson. We'll handle it." Malik's stomach drops. They're talking about him and Jamal. Grayson is turning the police against them, using his influence to paint them as criminals. Malik feels a surge of anger, but it's quickly replaced by fear. If Grayson has the police on his side, what chance do they have? That night, Malik lies awake, his mind racing. He knows they're running out of time. Grayson's grip on the neighborhood is tightening, and the racial undertones of his actions are becoming impossible to ignore. The way he looks at Malik and Jamal, the way he talks about them, it's not just disdain. It's hatred. But Malik also knows they can't give up. They have to fight back, no matter the cost. Because if they don't, Grayson will win. And if Grayson wins, it won't just be their family that suffers. It will be everyone who looks like them, everyone who doesn't fit into Grayson's perfect, white picket fence world. The stakes are higher than ever, and Malik knows the next move could change everything. But he also knows one thing for certain. They can't back down. Not now. Not ever. The air is electric with tension as Malik steps onto Grayson's perfectly manicured lawn. The sun hangs low in the sky, casting long shadows that stretch like fingers across the ground. Behind him, a small crowd has gathered. Neighbors peeking out from behind curtains, kids pausing their games to watch, even Mrs. Henderson standing on her porch with her arms crossed. They're all here, drawn by the promise of drama, but Malik knows this isn't just a spectacle. This is war. Grayson stands on his porch, his arms crossed and a smug smile plastered across his face. He looks like a king surveying his kingdom, confident and untouchable. The police officer from the other day is beside him, his hand resting on his belt, his expression unreadable. Malik's heart pounds in his chest, but he forces himself to stay calm. He can't afford to lose his cool now. "Well, well," Grayson says, his voice dripping with mockery. "If it isn't the Carter boy. Come to cause more trouble, have you?" Malik ignores the jab, his eyes locked on Grayson's. "I'm here to ask you a question," he says, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "Why are you trying to turn everyone against us? What did we ever do to you?" Grayson chuckles, a low, humorless sound that sends a chill down Malik's spine. "Oh, Malik, you still don't get it, do you? This isn't personal. It's about maintaining order, about keeping this neighborhood safe. And let's be honest, people like you, you're a liability." The words hit Malik like a punch to the gut, but he doesn't flinch. He can't. Not now. Behind him, he hears Jamal mutter something under his breath, but Malik raises a hand to silence him. This is his fight, and he's not backing down. "People like me?" Malik repeats, his voice rising. "What does that even mean? Because we're black. Because we don't fit into your perfect little world." Grayson's smile falters for a split second, but he quickly recovers. "This isn't about race, Malik. This is about behavior. And your behavior, well, let's just say it leaves a lot to be desired." The crowd murmurs, some nodding in agreement, others shifting uncomfortably. Malik feels the weight of their stares, the pressure of their judgment, but he doesn't care. He's done playing Grayson's game. "You're lying," Malik says, his voice cutting through the noise like a knife. "This has always been about race. About power. About keeping people like you on top, and people like me at the bottom. But you know what? I'm not afraid of you anymore." Grayson's smile vanishes, replaced by a look of pure disdain. "Brave words, Malik. But words don't mean much when you're standing alone." "I'm not alone," Malik says, his voice ringing out. "And I can prove it." For the first time, Grayson looks uncertain. His eyes dart to the crowd, then back to Malik. "What are you talking about?" Malik reaches into his pocket and pulls out his phone. His hands are trembling, but his voice is steady as he speaks. "I've been recording you, Grayson. Every conversation, every threat, every time you've tried to intimidate me or my family. It's all here. And it's not just me. There are others, people you've bullied, people you've manipulated. They're ready to speak out, to tell the truth about who you really are." The crowd erupts into whispers, their eyes wide with shock. Grayson's face turns red, his hands clenching into fists. "You're bluffing," he snarls, but there's a flicker of fear in his eyes. "Am I?" Malik says, holding up his phone. "Do you really want to take that chance?" Grayson takes a step forward, his voice low and dangerous. "You think you're clever, don't you? But you're just a kid. A nobody. You don't have the power to take me down." Malik doesn't flinch. "Maybe not alone. But together? We're stronger than you think." Behind him, Jamal steps forward, his eyes blazing with determination. "He's right, Grayson. You're not untouchable. And we're not afraid of you." The crowd murmurs again, louder this time, and Malik sees the first cracks in Grayson's armor. The man's confidence wavers, his eyes darting around as if searching for an escape. But there's nowhere to run. Not anymore. "This isn't over," Grayson spits, his voice trembling with rage. "You'll regret this." "No," Malik says, his voice firm. "You will." The tension in the air is palpable, the silence deafening. For a moment, no one moves. Then, slowly, the crowd begins to shift. People step forward, their faces filled with a mixture of anger and resolve. They've seen enough. They've heard enough. And they're ready to stand with Malik. Grayson looks around, his face pale, his hands shaking. For the first time, he looks small, weak, defeated. Malik takes a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. This isn't the end. Not yet. But it's a start. And for the first time in weeks, he feels a glimmer of hope. They've taken the first step. And no matter what happens next, they'll keep fighting. Together. The crowd is buzzing now, a low hum of disbelief and anger rippling through the neighborhood. Malik stands tall, his phone still clutched in his hand, the weight of Grayson's secrets heavy in his grip. Grayson's face is a mask of fury, but beneath it, Malik sees something else, fear. The kind of fear that makes a man desperate. Dangerous. "You think a few recordings will ruin me?" Grayson spits, his voice shaking with barely contained rage. He takes a step forward, his fists clenched, but Malik doesn't back down. "You're a fool, Malik. A nobody. You don't have the power to take me down." "Maybe not alone," Malik says, his voice steady. "But I'm not alone." As if on cue, a voice cuts through the tension. "He's right, Grayson. You're done." All heads turn as a figure steps out from the crowd. It's Officer Daniels, the same cop who had been standing beside Grayson moments ago. But now, his expression is hard, his eyes fixed on Grayson with a look of pure disgust. Malik's heart skips a beat. "What's happening?" "Daniels," Grayson says, his voice faltering. "What are you?" "I've been watching you," Daniels interrupts, his voice cold. "For weeks. Ever since you started throwing your weight around, trying to turn this neighborhood into your personal kingdom. But I'm not your lackey, Grayson. And I'm not going to let you destroy these kids, or anyone else, just to feed your ego." Grayson's face goes pale. "You're bluffing," he says, but his voice lacks conviction. "You can't prove anything." "Oh, but I can," Daniels says, pulling out his own phone. "I've got footage of you bribing city officials to push out the Johnsons. Audio of you threatening Malik and his family. And let's not forget the texts you sent me, trying to get me to handle the Carter boys. It's all here, Grayson. Every dirty little secret." The crowd erupts into gasps and murmurs, the shock palpable. Malik feels a surge of relief, but it's short-lived. Grayson's eyes dart around, wild and panicked, like a cornered animal. He's not going down without a fight. This is a setup. Grayson shouts, his voice cracking. "They're lying. All of them. Daniels, Malik. They're trying to frame me. But no one is buying it." The crowd's murmurs grow louder, angrier. Mrs. Henderson steps forward, her face flushed with indignation. "I've seen enough," she says, her voice trembling with emotion. "I've lived in this neighborhood for 30 years, and I've never been so ashamed. You've turned us against each other, Grayson. And for what? Power. Control. It's disgusting." Others chime in, their voices rising in a chorus of anger and betrayal. "You made us suspicious of our own neighbors," someone shouts. "You used us," another adds. Grayson stumbles back, his hands raised as if to ward off their accusations. "You don't understand," he says, his voice desperate. "I was trying to protect this neighborhood. To keep it safe." "Safe from who?" Malik demands, stepping forward. "From people like me? From families like mine? You don't get to decide who belongs here, Grayson. And you don't get to hide behind your lies anymore." Grayson's eyes narrow, and for a moment, Malik thinks he's going to lunge at him. But before he can move, a new voice cuts through the chaos. "That's enough." All eyes turn as a tall, stern-faced woman in a sharp business suit steps forward. Malik recognizes her immediately, Mayor Reynolds. She's flanked by 2 police officers, their expressions grim. The crowd parts as she approaches, her heels clicking against the pavement. "Mr. Grayson," she says, her voice cold and authoritative. "We've been investigating you for weeks. Your attempts to manipulate this neighborhood, your bribes, your threats, it's over. You're under arrest." Grayson's face goes white. "You can't do this," he stammers. "I have friends. Powerful friends. They'll what?" the mayor interrupts, her voice sharp. "Protect you? I don't think so. Your friends have already abandoned you, Grayson. You're on your own." The officers step forward, their handcuffs glinting in the sunlight. Grayson stumbles back, his bravado crumbling as the reality of his situation sinks in. "No," he mutters, shaking his head. "No, this can't be happening." But it is. The officers grab his arms, forcing them behind his back as they snap the cuffs into place. Grayson struggles, his face twisted with rage and fear, but it's no use. The crowd watches in stunned silence as he's led away, his once imposing figure now small and defeated. Malik feels a surge of triumph, but it's tempered by exhaustion. This fight has taken everything out of him, but it's not over yet. He turns to the crowd, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "This isn't just about Grayson," he says. "It's about all of us. About the way we treat each other. The way we see each other. We can't let fear and hate divide us anymore. We're stronger together. And if we stand up for each other, no one can tear us down." The crowd erupts into applause, their faces filled with a mixture of relief and determination. Malik feels a hand on his shoulder and turns to see Jamal grinning at him, his eyes shining with pride. "You did it, bro," Jamal says. "You took him down." "We did it," Malik corrects, smiling back. "Together." As the crowd begins to disperse, Malik feels a sense of hope he hasn't felt in weeks. Grayson's reign of fear is over, but the real work is just beginning. The neighborhood is bruised, but not broken. And as long as they stand together, they can rebuild. Stronger. Better. United. But as Malik watches Grayson being loaded into the back of a police car, he can't shake the feeling that this is just the beginning. The fight for justice is far from over. And Malik knows one thing for certain. He's ready. The news spreads like wildfire. By morning, Grayson's face is plastered across every local news outlet, his crimes laid bare for the world to see. "Prominent businessman arrested for bribery, intimidation, and racial harassment," the headlines scream. The once untouchable man is now a pariah, his reputation in ruins. His business partners cut ties, his assets frozen, and his name synonymous with corruption. The fall is swift, brutal, and utterly deserved. Malik watches it all unfold from the comfort of his living room, his mom and Jamal by his side. The TV screen flashes images of Grayson being led into court, his tailored suit wrinkled, his face pale and drawn. Reporters shout questions, but Grayson says nothing, his head bowed in shame. Malik feels a surge of satisfaction, but it's tempered by exhaustion. This fight has taken everything out of him, but it's over. Finally, it's over. "You did it, Malik," his mom says, her voice soft but filled with pride. She reaches over and squeezes his hand, her eyes glistening with tears. "You stood up for us. For this family. For this neighborhood." Malik shakes his head. "We did it, Ma. All of us." Jamal grins, leaning back on the couch. "Yeah, but you're the one who brought the receipts." Grayson didn't see that coming. The doorbell rings, breaking the moment. Malik opens the door to find a small crowd gathered on the porch. Neighbors, some he recognizes, others he doesn't. Mrs. Henderson is at the front, her usual stern expression replaced by something softer. "Guiltier." "Malik," she begins, her voice trembling. I owe you an apology. We all do. We let Grayson manipulate us. We let fear cloud our judgment. And we hurt you and your family in the process. For that, I'm truly sorry." The others nod, their faces filled with regret. Malik feels a lump in his throat, but forces himself to smile. "It's okay," he says. "What matters is that we move forward. Together." The crowd murmurs in agreement, their relief palpable. For the first time in weeks, the neighborhood feels like a community again. The tension is gone, replaced by a sense of unity and resolve. Malik knows it won't be perfect. There's still work to do, wounds to heal, but it's a start. As the neighbors disperse, Malik steps outside, the cool evening air brushing against his skin. He looks up at the stars, their light piercing through the darkness. For the first time in a long time, he feels at peace. The storm has passed, and he's still standing. Stronger, wiser, unbroken. Jamal joins him, slinging an arm over his shoulder. "You good, bro?" Malik nods. "Yeah, I'm good." They stand in silence for a moment, the weight of everything they've been through hanging between them. But it's a good weight, a weight that reminds them of how far they've come. "You know," Jamal says, breaking the silence, "this isn't the end. There's still a lot of work to do. A lot of people out there who need someone to stand up for them." Malik smiles. "I know, and we will. Together." Jamal grins, pulling him into a side hug. "Damn right." As they head back inside, Malik feels a sense of hope he hasn't felt in months. The fight against racial injustice is far from over, but he's ready. Ready to stand up. Ready to fight back. Ready to make a difference. And as he closes the door behind him, he knows one thing for certain. No matter what comes next, he'll face it head on. Because he's not just fighting for himself. He's fighting for his family, for his community, for justice. And that's a fight worth fighting.